Good evening, everybody. We've got a busy hour or so we'll get started. Thank you so much for joining us on a busy Thursday evening. Really great to see you all here. I'm going to start by introducing the wonderful Mickey O'Brien to welcome us to country on behalf of the Kaurna Nation. Mickey Kumarpi Marutja O'Brien is a senior Aboriginal man. Kumarpi means quick but also means impatient. Marutja means sixth-born male child. Mickey is a descendant of the Kaurna, Adelaide Plains and Noongar Yorke Peninsula peoples. Sharing culture is a responsibility that you're chosen to do, and it is a role handed to Mickey by his father, Uncle Lewis Yerla Burker O'Brien. It is a position he honours and respects greatly. Mickey has been a foster parent of 15 years and currently has 4 beautiful children under his care. He's travelled extensively all across Australia, living and working in a number of Aboriginal communities, delivering programs and benefits. He has seen the value and power of spiritual connection. Mickey enjoys the opportunity to support the Aboriginal community, sitting on boards and advisory panels. As Mickey's father has told him, Aboriginal people have always welcomed people to this country. We just never told them to go home. So, Mickey.
Tuwela Bani Budni Tuwela Wakana Padni Minyana na mani Pudaji Nai Nari Kamatpi Marutja Nai Ghana Burka Munkalankala Nai Wangadi Mani Budni Gani Yatana Di Yata Tandendanga. As an ambassador of the Kaurna people, it's lovely to welcome you here to Kaurna land, the land of the Adelaide Plains people. But importantly, when we welcome people, it isn't just about the words, it's the meaning. And it's asking you that when you come to a place that you are well, and I hope you are all well. But importantly, it's about the things that we share. Because when we come together, it's about connection. And so I want to tell you a story about Minyamuni. Now, Minyamuni, he was small in stature. He was very quick. He was very strong. But he was teased by many people in his community. And he wanted to be like some of those great hunters within his community. And so he asked the great elder, could he be a hunter? And the great elder said to him, no. He was saddened by this, but the great elder said to him, I want to give you a task, and if you can prove yourself by doing this task, I'll make you a hunter. And he said, I can do this. What is it that you ask? And he said, the winter is coming, and I want you to collect all the wood for winter, for our fires. He said, I can do that. And so he collected all this wood. Very quickly, he built a great pile of wood. He was very strong in doing this. And sadly, as he was doing this, lightning struck, and it hit that pile of wood. It trapped him within that wood, and sadly, he lost his life. Now, the great elders were saddened by this, and so they called upon our spirit people, just like I've done today, calling upon them to let them know that you're here, to invite you, to keep you safe whilst you're in this space. And they asked him to be called to the spirit people so that he can be a reminder of his resilience, the effort that he put in, so that we can all understand that everybody is important in life. And when I look about today, which is about hearing somebody talk about their resilience and their way of forging forward and to create opportunities and to share those ideas and understandings with all of us, when we see Minyamuni, before the rains come, before winter, hopefully he will be a reminder to all of us of his great effort and sadness that even though he wanted to be somebody that he didn't unfortunately get to, but we can all forge forward to try and be the best we possibly can. Minyamuni is ants, those ants that we see still collecting that foliage off the ground, cleaning it up and building his nest and stuff. So he's a great reminder of the strength that he had and the determination and the quickness that he had in those ants that we see today. So I hope that story means something, and hopefully it's connectable with Guy's talk in a moment. So finally, I'll leave you with these words. Mai unjaga, mai ajaga, nachu yukandaya, nachu yakandaya, punya do wa do, which simply says, let us walk upon the land, let us sit, let us listen, let us look upon the land, but let's do it together in harmony. Nei chaya, and thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Mickey. That was fantastic. So welcome everybody to the Thinkers in Residence program Oration by Dr. Guy Turnbull. Tonight we'll hear South Australia towards a cooperative state, unleashing social and economic prosperity. I'd like to acknowledge Nat Cook, the Shadow Minister for Human Services, and I'd also like to welcome the Don Dunstan Foundation's Committee of Management Chair, Kathy King. A little bit of housekeeping. The exits are up towards the back of the lecture theatre, and an accessible exit is towards the left-hand side of the stage. Toilets can also be located just out through those doors to my left. I'm Lainey Anderson. I'm a columnist with the Sunday Mail, and probably more importantly for tonight, I've been a volunteer with Catherine House for many years, helping to support and educate women out of homelessness, and I'm also South Australia's Mental Health Ambassador for 2018. Tonight we would like to make special thanks to the wonderful partners of the Thinkers in Residence program, without whom none of this would be possible, and we wouldn't have the amazing presence of people like Guy in our societies, and we wouldn't be learning so much from them. On behalf of the Don Dunstan Foundation, we would like to thank our presenting partners, and you'll see them all up the back, there's way too many to name, our major partners, our residencies partners, our contributing partners, and finally our supporting partners. Special acknowledgement must go tonight to the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, who have played a key role in Guy's residency, and also our new partners NBN Co and the Shift Ed program, brought to you by Flinders University's New Venture Institute. So tonight we're here to listen to Thinker in Residence Dr. Guy Turnbull. Guy has been embedded in the cooperative and social enterprise sector since 1988 and is the former full-time Managing Director of Care and Share Associates Limited, an employee-owned social enterprise he helped to found in 2004. You look way too young to be doing that in 2004, Guy. He previously worked across the UK as a social economy consultant, specialising in business planning, social franchising and replication, program leadership, training, research and strategic planning. His recent achievements include driving the growth of Care and Share Associates from a start-up pioneering social franchise to a £17 million turnover employee-owned social enterprise. Amazing. He also created RED, the Rapid Enterprise Development Workshops, an innovative training approach to social enterprise development for people living with disability. Guy was the winning UK finalist of Ernst & Young's prestigious global competition Entrepreneur of the Year, and in 2017 his work was recognised by Social Enterprise UK through the award of an honorary fellowship. Amazing Guy. An amazing guy. There you go. Guy will address the opportunities provided by different forms of cooperatives, employee ownership and regional strategies in response to priority issues in the state. This includes workforce planning and a focus on the care and social services sector in light of the NDIS rollout. We'll learn how ethical enterprise and democratic business ownership can play a crucial role in the purpose economy of South Australia. Guy's presentation will be followed by a panel discussion, and we'd love you to ask your questions too. So now I'll introduce David Pearson, the Executive Director of the Don Dunstan Foundation, to give a brief update on what Guy has been up to these past 3 weeks and some context on what brings us all here tonight. By way of background, the Don Dunstan Foundation is a thought leadership organisation established to inspire action for a fairer world and to build on the legacy of the late Premier of South Australia, Don Dunstan. The foundation is currently focused on the purpose economy, mental health, homelessness, migration and Aboriginal economic empowerment. David, please come up.
Thanks, Lainey, for that introduction, and thank you, Mickey, for that welcome to country, and thank all of you for being here on this Thursday night. I know you could be at home watching the Honey Badger or whatever else is on at TV at the moment. But look, I really want to thank you all for being here and to give you a bit of context, as Lainey was saying. So I've had the privilege over the last 3 weeks of spending a bit of time with Guy, and in that time he's conducted or participated in 10 workshops, masterclasses and roundtables. He's given 8 speeches and had over 30 other meetings and different sessions. And in that time, all of that, he's engaged with just over 1,500 people. So he's worked pretty hard. And through all of this, throughout all of this, he's maintained an unshakable sense of optimism and positivity, backed by a great sense of humour. And an ability to spot a cooperative a mile away, or as he would say, 1,000 yards. Most importantly, he doesn't just spot these opportunities, he turns them into reality, and he's done that throughout his life, as you would have heard from Lainey speaking, but there's a little collection of them that I've heard over the last little while. Guy helped start a social workers cooperative in the UK many years ago to support the public sector. He started a music teachers cooperative, a Northumbrian makers cooperative, which wasn't making Northumbrians, it was making arts and crafts. Stole your gag, Guy. He started a cooperative on soap. He's helped start a cooperative on cinemas, which helped end his public sector career. You can ask him about that story afterwards. And of course, the Care and Share Associates, and my personal favourite, he helped start a brewery as well. But just to get a sense of the impact that, there is a massive impact that our cooperatives can have, and to get a bit of a sense of that, we've done this little exercise that Guy asked me to replicate today, but it requires all of your assistance. So the statistic about cooperatives is that 8 out of 10 people in Australia are members of cooperatives. So I'd like you to join with me, and if I name a cooperative and you're a member, can you please stand up? So have we got anyone in the room who's a member of, and the goal here is to have 80% of the audience standing up, obviously. So if anyone here a member of the Barossa Co-op? Yep, it's always a couple. There you go. So the Barossa Co-ops are, a very popular cooperative in the Barossa Valley, and they, the community owned basically like a Woolworths or Coles, but they own the whole shopping precinct. It's phenomenal, you should check it out. Is anyone a cooperative health fund member? So, Bupa, HCF, Health Partners? Stand up. Stay standing, everyone as well, who was in the food co-op. All right, there you go, it's quite a few of you. How many are insurers like QBE, Cooperatives Insurance Companies? A few more. What about a cooperative bank or building society? So that would be People's Choice Credit Union or Beyond Bank or Bank Australia, any of those mutuals. Yeah, we're getting pretty close to 80% here. Who's a member of the RAA? Usually gets a few more. There you go. I reckon we've beat 80%. This is a very purposeful audience. And who's a member of an industry super fund? It's really cooperative as well. That usually gets a few more. There you go. So everyone who's sitting down, have a think about what purpose means in your life and join a few more cooperatives. And yeah, thank you everyone. Oh, Guy's still sitting down. Shame on you. That can't be right. So one of the great things about spending some time with Guy is that he's been able to turn these ideas of cooperatives into action, and that's really what the Thinkers program's all about. In the past 3 weeks, we've explored a whole range of new ideas about how we can use cooperatives to improve the way care is provided in Australia. And there's a whole series of partners in the room who are working on ways in which we can put that into action. All up these efforts come together to try and build the purpose economy here in South Australia, and that's ultimately what the Thinkers program has been focused on. And I just wanted to share a few of those things that we've been working on. So the purpose economy, for those who aren't aware, is those parts of the economy that are really growing the fastest in South Australia at the moment in terms of job creation, not in terms of private wealth accumulation, but in terms of the things that give people a sense of purpose in their life, employment. The social and care sector employs more people than almost every other sector, but we don't talk about it as an industry, and that's what the Thinkers program is trying to focus. How do we grow that sector? It's also defined by different business models, so social enterprises, cooperatives, B Corps certified companies, to name just a few. So over the last 18 months, as I was saying, we've modelled the we've surveyed the social enterprise sector in South Australia with some researchers from the University of Adelaide. Through the Centre for Social Innovation, we've helped to map the social innovation ecosystem in South Australia. We've identified that there are some big gaps, and so it's really great that the Social Impact Investment Network, led by Jane Arnold, who's here tonight, is putting a strategy together to find out how do we get the investment that's needed to help those for-purpose organisations get the finance they need to scale. We've worked with the Stretton Centre to set up a new purpose business network to continue to promote these types of businesses. There's a group of people come together to promote the concept of B Corp, certified companies in South Australia. If you don't know what B Corps are, talk to Nick Crowther, who's in the room. Wave your hands, Nick. Up the back. He's Evangelist in Chief for the B Corps network in South Australia. We're seeking to get 20 new B Corps in South Australia at least by 2020. Carers SA are exploring ways which we can use the technology in the transport sector to improve access to transport for carers in regional South Australia. Volunteering SA are exploring how do we use the IP that they've built up in becoming experts, IP being intellectual property, being experts in sharing our skills in volunteering with the world and turning that into a revenue stream for reinvestment here. We've got a blossoming Chooks network in South Australia now of helping to promote gender equality in the entrepreneurs and startup system. There's a number of Chooks badges in the room I saw on the way in. The University of Adelaide is setting up a Eunice Social Business Centre, as is the University of South Australia, and you heard before the Shifted Network, the Shifted Education series that the New Ventures Institute and Kick Innovation have launched is a powerful way to make sure we continue to embed purpose into our economy and to the work we do. So there's a lot going on. We've still got a lot more to do. And I'd just like to share one final thought about cooperatives and what brings us here tonight and just wanted to say thank you before I do that to the Business Council of Cooperative Mutuals for actually introducing us to Guy and making all of tonight possible. But the final thought I wanted to share with you is around Don Dunstan and why the Dunstan Foundation was so keen to partner with the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals is because this work that we're engaged in was unfinished business for Don Dunstan himself. For much of the reform, so much of the reform that his government led was about expanding democracy and inclusive forms of governance. And the Dunstan era saw a huge transformation in democratic rights for our civic life. And it was only 45 years ago this year that the Dunstan government passed the legislation that gave all citizens the right to vote in the upper house, in our upper house in the state parliament, not just men who owned property. And he did. His government championed that, but his government championed the democratic rights in our private lives as well, most prominently through the decriminalisation, the first state in Australia to do that, of homosexuality. But one area Don did a lot of work, but in his own words didn't achieve anywhere near as much as what he would have liked, was to extend the democratic rights of participation to all of us in our working lives. He didn't use the words or the language cooperatives. He spoke of industrial democracy and set up a unit, the first in the world, to advance that agenda. And so when you're hearing Guy talk tonight about cooperatives, very eloquently, I hope, Guy. I'll do my best. Yeah, he says he'll do his best. But tonight, as Guy speaks, I'd encourage you to reflect on what it would be like if we could replicate the leadership that Don Dunstan showed in that era of civic rights and personal rights for democracy, and not just expand that in those areas, the democratic rights for those in those areas of personal and civic life, but into the way into our working lives, into the way our economy works. We can be leaders in this space again, as Don made South Australia a leader in so many ways. And Guy's oration tonight will seek to paint a picture about how we can be a leader be a cooperative state and a leader in that. So, as Don used to say, there is much to be done. We hope that you'll be part of it. We hope Guy's oration tonight helps inspire action for a fairer world in the work that you do, and hopefully in a cooperative way as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me all? Yeah? Really? Can you do that? It's on. So, we're running a bit late, so I'm going to speed through a bit of stuff. But I thought I'd take you on a bit of a journey, because I actually chose this title. And then I was thinking last week when I was writing this, David, yeah. And actually, are cooperatives too important to Chancellor Luck? Are they too serious and the problems SA is facing? Actually, we can't wait for luck. We need to do something different. We need to do something massive. And that got me thinking about my career. Now, I used to be a geographer, so I never got lost, okay? But I never thought I'd end up running a £17 million business. And it all started there. That's the actual photograph of, not me, by the way. I am slightly older than I say. I've seen some research into youth unemployment right to my PhD, and I was embedded in a council estate in grim northeast England, and obviously I wasn't avert, so my undercover was helping set up a co-op in tenant management. And rather than asking young people why they didn't want to work. And I came across the whole co-op idea. And that blew me away. And that was luck. That was chance. I never thought I would end up running a business, whether mutual or anything. That wasn't in my plan. And it got me to think about this thing. Is that actually business isn't just about I win so you lose. Business can be so powerful. Enterprise can be so powerful because actually I can win and you can win. We can all win. So cooperatives are this amazing approach to how we can work together as a community for common good. And cooperatives tend to turn up where you need them. And that's the kind of theme I want to follow through today. So as David said, I've been privileged in my life, in my career. I thought I was going to end up teaching middle-class kids geography for the rest of my life, and actually I ended up setting up, owning with others, and leading some amazing cooperatives, a foster care agency, a domiciliary care business, a soap company, a brewery. We made Northumbrians, you're wrong. Actually, we didn't make Northumbrians. But I guess I'm best known for leading, founding, and becoming the managing director of Care and Share Associates. So we ended up delivering 24,000 hours a week of care to mainly older people, complex care, end of life, palliative care. And it was an amazing experience. But even then, I was an accidental entrepreneur. The only reason I became managing director was when we secured some venture capital to grow the business, they insisted that we stop being cooperatively managed at the top and went to the MD. Before that, somebody would phone up and say, who's in charge? And I would answer and say, nobody. So, but we did a really important thing. So should we rely on chance? Okay, so our cooperative is an accidental enterprise. are they more just a mutation of free enterprise, or are they actually something quite different? So it got me thinking, which was lucky because that was in the job description David gave me. And just in case I didn't read the JD, they stuck it in the job title as well, Thinker in Residence. So I had to think. So co-ops go back to the Rochdale Pioneers. And that was a bunch of men getting together because they were concerned about the working class being supplied with unadulterated food. And that resulted in the cooperative movement being developed in the UK based on ethical values, social values, self-help. Okay, so there was a chance there. That just happened. And cooperatives are governed by 7 cooperative principles, which mean a lot, I would imagine, to all of us in this room tonight. But the Rochdale Pioneers wasn't the only thing that happened by chance. Here's another example. In 1932, in the midst of the American Depression, one man decides to walk out of Los Angeles to a farm and share his labor for a sack of food. It was so successful, a neighbor went with him the next day. And before you know it, you've got 1.3 million people being supported by cooperatives. Okay? Human agency again. Mondragon in Spain, 12.1 billion turnover, started by a priest in Mondragon because of the poverty and the challenges left over by the Spanish Civil War. Okay, so is that all luck? Is that all chance? Or is it something else? And as David quite eloquently has pointed out while you were standing up, cooperatives in Australia are huge. We just don't know we're a member. We've forgotten the purpose of democratic ownership and management. So, are cooperatives a response to pressure and need? Well, what's this? Who can tell me what this is? Starlings. It's a mammation. So in nature, animals flock together for common purpose. And they do that automatically because they know that actually that creates safety, protection. And actually, if you don't believe me, ask the geese, because they honk, okay? But the reason geese fly in that way is because they get sent further. They swap around, they cooperate. And that comes back to my story. So CASA grew out of Little Women, which was set up by a wonderful woman called Margaret Elliott, which was a bunch of 5 working class housewives in Sunderland in the mid-70s, who set up a cooperative grocery shop because they needed to work and they needed to look after their kids. So the nursery upstairs. And that morphed into a care cooperative, morphed into Sunderland Home Care, and Margaret and I we met each other more than one occasion over a glass of wine and decided to grow CASA. Human agency, nature. So there she is. We have to bow now. She's got an OBE. So she's done incredibly well. So why is this relevant to South Australia? Why does this matter? Well, you're facing some huge challenges. Some would say wicked problems. And given the Royal Commission on Aged Care, they are wicked. So we have the inevitability of demography. We are refusing to die. Okay, we are becoming an older society. How are we going to recruit workforce? The NDIS, consumer-led care, there's an issue with the pricing tariff, there's a change of business model which we're struggling with, there's underutilisation of NDIS which is dragging down the GDP. So this happened in the UK a couple of years ago. So I just thought it might be quite useful to share what happened. Shut your eyes. So we had the financial crash, and we had austerity. Then stupidly we voted to leave Europe, which led to a lot of our European comrades leaving the UK. We've had a spectacular market failure in our health and social care sector. And just to be clear, into the straws in the wind, when we set up the NHS in 1948, average life expectancy was 66, 81. Australia, 82. So we're all living longer, we get the thing. And actually there's another bulge around disabled kids as well. This is what health and social care market failure looks like. Okay? People dying in corridors in hospitals because there's no community care, because you can't recruit the staff, you haven't got the capacity. Okay? This is queuing to get into hospital because we can't empty our hospitals quickly enough in order to meet that need. Okay? So, and we know this is happening in South Australia already with ramping. So if you're old and infirm and you don't need to be in an acute setting, don't be in an acute setting. You know, hospitals are really good at fixing things, they're not really good at delivering long-term care. So, meanwhile in Australia, look what's happened. The same kind of pressures are starting to play out in the aged care sector and the disability sector. So, Task Force a couple of weeks ago says you need 1 million aged care workers by 2050. And actually the Productivity Commission says 3.5 million of you will require care. There's only 26 million of you. You know, if somebody does the maths, it's all a bit of a challenge. Looks like that to me. So, the UK policy response was this: consumerism, personalisation, rationing, deregulation, casualise the workforce, brutal procurement environment, kick it all into long grass, have a green paper about it. It's not going to touch the science, but the thing that really surprises me is that we've never suddenly just got old, have we? I mean, why is it a surprise that we've suddenly just become old? We knew this was happening. I love ostriches because they don't put their heads in the sand, whereas men on the whole do. And what we need to do in terms of, and the point I'm making about luck and cooperatives, is we need to think about not putting our heads in the sand about this challenge, but actually doing something about it. So, how do we avoid this wreck? Do we throw the dice? Hope a co-op turns up? Maybe find a new mutual way of solving this thing that's going to happen to we can't stop this thing. We just need to think differently. So this was me at 5:30 this morning. So actually, this is why we set CASA up. This is me when I'm 85 and I've got dementia and I've got somebody coming into my home every morning to get me out of bed, to toilet me, to clean me, to dress me, and get me ready for another day. And I want that person to be well trained, well paid, have a stake in what they do, and actually to be the same person every day. And that's why we set CASA up, because actually engaged employees deliver high quality care. This makes business more successful, and then we reinvest that into the business. Secondly, let's be transparent. We all want the same thing. The great thing about co-ops is you haven't got external shareholders. So you can be honest with everybody about where the money goes. I used to love going to see the commissioners with the spreadsheet and the P&L and say, well, if you can do it better, show me. You know, you pay me this, I pay the staff for that, I need to do X, Y, and Z to keep everybody safe. Show me, you know. In terms of the workforce, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And this is the kind of thing we used to do in the induction. So, through this, what's important for CASA? So I'd say to a bunch of new recruits, what's important for a business? And they go, quality, making a profit, so that kind of thing. And I'd say, okay, so what's important for you? They would say, well, you know, I want job security, I want to feel valued, I want to feel heard. I said, okay, so actually they're the same things. So I can give you, CASA can give you job security if you do it from Z. So it was all about aligning those things together. And that's why employee ownership really works, because it actually creates an engaged workforce. And when you're trying to recruit 1 million older care workers by 2050, that's the kind of stuff you need to do. So it's about boiling the business down to a couple of numbers, teaching everybody the rules, giving a scoreboard so everybody can follow the action, and everybody gets a profit share. What's wrong with that? That makes a lot of sense. And this is exactly the wipeable board we had in CASA, in each of our receptions. Volume, targets, current capacity, quality. Everybody in the business knows what's going on. So, but the thing about co-ops, it's not just about care. So, 98% of all businesses in South Australia are small. And they're all, the owner-managers are all getting old. So there's a business succession issue. A report last year identified business succession as the second main challenge. There we go, that's a nice graph. So, again, what are we going to do about that? You don't want to create a vibrant economy. So again, should we leave it to chance? Because we know, what we do know, is ownership matters. Okay? Trickle down doesn't work. Okay, we know that we need to keep ownership local. You don't do that, it's like not having a sieve. You need to build a sieve. You need to retain wealth. And you do that by ownership. So we've got a great example already in South Australia, the Barossa Co-op, which I'm just going to flick through because we're running a bit short of time. But it's all about sticky money. It's all about local ownership, fantastic brand, fantastic business, but reinvesting back into the community. So, there's a huge amount of cooperative development benefits. So that begs the question, what would Don do? Okay, what would Don do? What would, I'm sponsored by the Don Johnson Foundation. What would Don do? Because we have a model that works. We've got huge challenges, so what would he do? Well, as David said, he talked about industrial democracy. You can understand why so you stop the government telling you what sexuality you should be or how you should behave in your home. Why stop there? Why have private capital tell you how to operate? Why do that? Why not build a more cooperative state? And there's a whole range of mutual solutions that can be created. So we can actually use the challenge of the care sector. So we can actually foster, because we know cooperatives will come to solve some of these really wicked issues. But maybe we should encourage it. Maybe we shouldn't leave it to luck. Also, in terms of care, at the end of the day, one day, 20, 30 years' time, it will be a move away from time and task. We'll use data. We'll all own our data. And we'll know what a community needs to be supported. And we'll just give money to that community to keep well. It's the only way we're going to solve the demographic challenge. And I'd want that provider to be mutually owned, not privately owned. And they are circling. They're watching the not-for-profit struggle with NDIS. They're watching the balance sheets empty, and they are waiting. And you don't want that because you want to build the civ. You want to build the cooperative state. So, it's all about dealing with burning platforms. And some things I'm doing in terms of my residency is thinking about how do we do that? What matters? So it's about driving on particular sectors and showing what can work, using social procurement as a progressive way of making markets. Government's a big spender. Why doesn't it make markets? It is a market maker. Access to capital is a real tricky issue. We're more developed in the UK in terms of accessing unsecured debt and equity for social enterprises. We need to think about how we do that in Australia, because Mondragon ended up building their own bank in order to create that £11 billion federation of worker co-ops. We need access to capital. But also we need education and internships. And you've got such a vibrant university sector here in South Australia. How do we point that to make sure that works? And then we need to find leaders, because actually although cooperatives are democratically owned and managed, they do need leaders. It's about leadership, but doing it in a mutual manner. And finally, enabling legislation. Now, what we've learned from Italy and elsewhere is if you change legislation, make things just a more flatter playing field, cooperatives will thrive. And we need to think about what red tape and what other changes can be made to actually not allow co-op development to be a chance, an accident to solve the problems, but to encourage their growth. Okay. And important scale. There's great co-ops elsewhere in Australia and elsewhere in the world. Why not find the best and bring them here? Don't need to reinvent the world always. So, it's all about, because remember, I'm a geographer, not a business person. But I think it's all about finding the right people with the right ideas and giving them the right support and allow it to thrive. So it's about how we do that. So as part of the Dundanson Foundation, we're working on a number of prototypes currently to take that thinking into a bit of action, because there's nothing better than seeing what can work in practice. Actually showing a bit of leadership, showing a bit of illustration and example. That works really well. And finally, what I would like to say is, despite from working me like a dog, they allowed me to have a bit of fun the other day, and I ran one of my workshops which was about supporting disabled people to explore self-employment opportunities. And look at those faces. And that is the power of enterprise. Okay? The moment you actually start creating that environment, you can actually start lifting everything. And that's what we need to do in the face of these challenges we face. So thank you for listening to me. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. That was fantastic, as I knew it would be. Now we're going to invite our other panellists up to the stage for our discussion. Melina Morrison is our first panellist. She's the CEO of the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals and a well-known advocate for all forms of cooperative and mutually owned enterprise, regularly contributing commentary and appearing as a spokesperson for the sector. She successfully lobbied for a Senate inquiry into the cooperative and mutual business sector, which handed down 17 groundbreaking reforms in 2016. Welcome, Melina. Our next panellist is David O Lachlan, a Port Pirie boy, I didn't know that, educated in Adelaide and elected as a councillor in 2003 before being elected as Mayor of the inner metropolitan city of Prospect in 2006. 10 years later, David was elected as President of the Australian Local Government Association, representing local communities and councils at the highest levels of government, including COAG. Welcome, David. Our final panellist is Bert Verhoeven, and he's the head of the... Sorry, I've got my notes right in the line of my microphone. Sorry about that. He's the head of entrepreneurial programs at the New Venture Institute at Flinders University. He's a successful entrepreneur and has been so since 1990. He's lived the shifted purpose to impact mythology firsthand. In the Netherlands, he was co-founder of 2 successful social enterprises, Sports and Development Aid, with activities in Holland, Brazil, Belgium, the Czech Republic, and also he headed up Art for Kids. At Flinders NVI, Bert is the brain behind many of the New Venture Institute's entrepreneurial programs that pull together capability building and innovation, or new venture outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Bert as well. Thank you. There is a roving microphone, so if... oh, there we are, right in the middle there. Thank you. So please put your hand up if you'd like to ask a question. I think... Who am I going to start with? My first question really is, when I think of cooperatives, and I'm certainly no expert, I sort of think of niche. I think of nice, well, big-hearted and all of that. I don't think about 1 million people by 2050. Guy, how do we, in South Australia, how do we upscale, you know, the idea of cooperatives to actually tackle the big issues the state's facing?
I think it's about, I think it's understanding that care work is undervalued currently, and it's how we can make care more of a career, so how we can engage. And you know, one of our premises was not only do you come work for us, you get a share in the business, you get a profit share, but also you could progress in terms of career. Part of the problem currently is care is devalued and casualised, and you're not going to hit that million target without having a serious consideration about workforce.
Yeah.
Politicians, and I, to be honest, until 10 years ago, workforce, you know, was slightly quite, not a boring issue, but, you know, the workforce is there. I lost a branch 2 years ago because Amazon turned up, created a warehouse, and created 1,000 jobs at £2 an hour more than I could pay, and took the workforce.
Wow. So, David, as a man with a very good insight into government, what are the barriers at the moment that you think could be lifted to make cooperatives easier and, yeah, just upscale the industry?
Look, it's a great question, and I won't profess to know all the barriers in all three levels of government, but it does take a feeling of enterprise and, in a way, a burning platform to inspire people to actually get together. So local government has, in South Australia, has a mutual insurance body that's a cooperative. It has also a joint venture around our liability and assets insurance. We have another joint venture which is also a cooperative around our workers' compensation insurance. And we have a bank, a local government finance association. So what local government found was that we couldn't go to the banks and borrow money to build a new library or a new civic centre or whatever it would be. The banks, this is not that long ago, this is in the early 80s, I think, before my time. The banks would say, well, you're a credit risk. Say, well, we've got legislation to rate people's property from here to the end of time. How could that possibly be a credit risk? Yeah. But they wouldn't lend to us. So the councils got together and formed our own finance authority. It's still the only one in Australia. The other jurisdictions have slightly different laws, but ours is very, very successful. And so therefore, you know, when you've got a good reason, government can actually make these things happen for itself on occasion, and this occasion is a really good example. Our finance authority, when it makes a profit, gives the money back to councils. We have an insurance joint venture, cooperative, that when they make a profit, give the money back to councils. And this is an insurance company that you pay a fee to, that's determined by, in part, you, that when they do well, gives you a rebate. I think that's a pretty good deal. Yeah. So you have to kind of break through the paradigms to get to the point at which these things make sense. And there may well be legislation that's in the way, but I think you've got to push the boundaries until you find that, and then find a government that's happy to work through those issues, because sometimes they're not as simple as just tweaking a little thing. Legislation's a complex kind of animal. You've got to work through it very carefully to make sure you don't open up a whole pile of can of worms while you're trying to solve an obvious problem. So you have to be careful. Is it, and maybe Melina, this is a question for you, is it an ideological question as well? Like, I'm hearing sort of, when I hear all of David and Guy speak, I sort of think, I know politicians who would think this was lefty, sort of, we're talking about socialism almost, you know, like as opposed to capitalism. Is that an issue that you've come up against, or am I completely off topic there?
No, not at all. But it's not the problem we might think it is. So in terms of political support, cooperatives fit every political ideology. So for the Liberal side of thinking. This is about it's about self-help, autonomy, building civil society, so you can talk about smaller government, decentralisation. In fact, that idea of returning to communities the power to transform and to meet, transform local economies, to meet market failure, to address needs, as well as social justice needs, but it can obviously work in a market failure area like David's described. That's very much an idea that's not quite fitting with, say, the left side of government. And then you can most definitely talk about social ownership and distributive capitalism and returning democracy, industrialised democracy. So that's not the problem. The problem really is awareness. There are legislative and regulatory barriers. It's much too hard to set up and run a cooperative. It should be level playing field there. But as David's described, as Guy's been talking about tonight, the legal models exist. The lack of awareness systemically disadvantages communities when they're looking around for ways to respond to markets. And if you're just looking at the social care workforce, for example, the problem, you can't make something be a cooperative. The problem is, what is the issue you're trying to solve? In a thin margin business, you need to eke out productivity from a workforce, but you need to do so in a way that you're not, cannibalising or exploiting the workforce. And you need to we need to engage them and count them in. So one way to do that is through cooperatives. It's not the only way.
So I won't give too much away because of client confidentiality, but I met a guy yesterday who wants to sell his business to his workforce. So he's mid-50s, it's a medium-sized business, and he's got no kids, and he just wants to, and if he doesn't say it to the workforce, he'll just get eaten up by the big players and go. And in the UK, that would be embraced, there'd be tax incentives, it'd be easy, it would be encouraged, it'd be a good thing to do. In Australia, it's so expensive to do that slow migration of ownership to the workforce, where he gets a decent value for his 30 years of work, and the workforce gets a great business to carry on. It's quite difficult to do.
Yeah. Now, sorry, I've got about 1 million questions, so I'm hogging the microphone, but has anyone got a question? Yes. Down the front and... Yeah. Just quickly, Bert, I'd really like to hear from you about what exactly you're doing at the New Venture Institute to just raise awareness, as Melina said, about, the use, the worth, and the capacity of young people to start cooperatives themselves.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to say that for most startups, and I've probably worked with over 1,000 of them, I've never met any startup that says I want to start a co-op. Yeah. Yes. So it's not the first business model of choice for startups at the moment, and that may have to do with the awareness you're talking about. It may have to do with the fact that social enterprises are very popular. Yeah? So people say, well, we'll start a social enterprise. We give away our profit to a good cause, or we reinvest in a good cause, and for that we don't need a cooperative. But at the moment, it's not the first business model of choice, and maybe we need to rethink that. But maybe cooperatives are more for larger organizations, or more for family business who want to reorganize or become a different kind of business. Maybe that's how it is. I would like to see startups thinking more cooperatively. One of the things we do at our New Venture Institutes, we work with manufacturers on innovation, and we call it collaborative innovation. And what you see, and then you see that happening a lot more nowadays. And maybe cooperatives could become a vehicle for collaborative innovation, and then all of a sudden that may change the way we look at them. So yeah.
Thank you, Bert. Okay, sorry, first question.
My grandma worked as a registered nurse for 40 years, and I've got 2 friends who work in disability and aged care, and they are burnt out, underpaid, and overworked. if you gave them the idea that they had to get into a cooperative together to get better working conditions, they wouldn't know anywhere to start from. And that's one of the major ones you've talked about, is where do you actually get the leadership and also the basic franchise model to work with a cooperative. I know other people who've been in cooperatives and housing trusts and a few other things. Most of them have shut down. You get burnout very quickly, where people become the owners of their own destiny. There's not much support and they can't get any capital. So how would you address the burnout, the capital, and the template for actually starting a cooperative?
I think that's you, Melina. Shall I start or you?
You start.
Thank you. I think it's better to own and be in control of your own destiny than get burnt out by a private provider. So the whole purpose of setting up CASA was to create a bit of work, to pay what we could pay, which was about market rate, maybe a bit more, but if the business did well, everybody gets a share. And everybody gets to know what they need to do to make it. So that, in a sense, addresses some of the burnout. But it doesn't address the issue that we are an ageing population, we have got increasing demand, and it's a tough industry to be in. I think in terms of awareness about co-ops and how you do it, I think peak bodies like the BCCM have a significantly increasing role to play. I also think it's about picking, and what we did with CASA was pick a really good model and scale it. And said, right, okay, I think there was a comment about politics. I don't think, and co-ops, and I'm going to be really clear here, social enterprise isn't nice people doing nice things and giving money to nice people. Co-ops is a movement. It's about democratic ownership and management of business. So I don't think there should be huge equity dragging out of cash from the care sector. I think we want to retain it mutually and reinvest it into society. So why we set CASA up was to compete with the multinationals. I used to love going to provider meetings where some of the larger multinational or big national providers would come to me and say, stop poaching my staff. And I'd say, well, pay them better. Or treat them better. And that's it. And it is a movement, and it's that important. Sorry.
Melina, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I think Guy's summed it up, sort of in a macro and a philosophical sense. It's absolutely what Guy's saying. There's a movement, and the cooperative sector has a role to play to lead the movement. And programs like this wonderful program, the Thinkers program, is a way of disseminating knowledge. Knowledge is power. One of the most disruptive and subversive elements of cooperatives is the idea that ordinary people coming together can do things for themselves. That's not to say that when you're a marginalised or disadvantaged person, it's not hard to do. So we absolutely need to level the playing field when it comes to access for business advice. You think of the plethora of services around business startups, the NICE scheme. If I'm a NICE person, I own the NICE scheme, I can't, with other people, form a cooperative. That's not a business model that I'm allowed to use my NICE, payment for. That's just disadvantage. We need competition between business models as well as competition between businesses. But there are, right now in Australia, there is a group of aged care workers, led by a great leader, absolutely. They're called This Cooperative Life, and you do need a champion. But marginalised, mostly women from migrant communities, the least likely to get work in the sort of mainstream work, come together to build their own aged care business, and Guy's a director of this cooperative. So again, mentorship and leadership. So there's a whole lot of different, the systemic reasons, but there's a kind of just a acknowledgement that people can actually do these things together, that we need with and by, not to and for, is the motto of the...
Are there any powerful, and we'll go to our next question, so put your hand up just here. Melina, are there any powerful political advocates at the moment that are actually advocating this change, like from within politics, or is it more sort of disparate groups from outside?
Well, the South Australian government has enabled the first spin-out in Australia of an employee-led business with the Community Youth Services, QDOS they've called them.
Oh,
they
yeah.
launched on the 1st of October. The employees... So what happened really was market failure. They put the service, which is early intervention, early intervention out to the market. No buyers, if you like, for that business, because pretty hard businesses to turn a profit, and Guy knows this much better than I do, having run these things. But so that's leadership in this state. But you know, Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, is an advocate of mutuals. So he's launched an inquiry into access to capital to try and, as well as Dr. Andrew Lee, the opposition, is the co-chair of the business of the Parliamentary Friends of Co-ops and Mutuals. Strange Bedfellows, the deputy leader of the Nationals, is the other co-chair. So because you know that Nationals are agrarian socialists, really. So they're great supporters of co-ops. Yeah, so we're advocates from all areas.
Oh, that's good. That's a positive. Okay, our question. Thank you.
G'day there. My name's Matt. Thank you very much for your talk, Guy. While I was listening, I took basically only 3 notes. But my question is the needs that are generating this need for co-ops generated by a lack of investment by government and private enterprise? And if that's the case, can the problem be solved by a greater investment by governments in these essential services? And if that is the case as well, is a well-run government that takes its responsibility to the people and democracy seriously, is a well-run government the ultimate form of cooperative?
Interesting.
David and maybe?
Of course. Well, it's a great question, and councils can be seen as cooperatives, and you can have a really good relationship with your council, and you can have a fantastic level of community interactivity. There are some really good observations around how well that works in terms of people's sense of connection. And the upcoming elections for local government, please vote for me if you live anywhere in the city of Prospect, but please vote for somebody wherever you are. The voter turnout, because it's not compulsory, the voter turnout in the regions, in small country towns, is around 70%. Really, really good connection with their local people. The voter turnout in the city is much less. My city is about 30.5%. The state average is 31%. The largest council in the state, Onkaparinga, 19 to 20%. 22% I think is their peak. So it seems the larger the council is, the less personal connection people feel with it. So there is some kind of issue about scale and connectivity and inclusiveness. There's also some other strange things happen in, and this is a point I did want to make at some stage, we'll make it now. In country towns, councils can lease a paddock to a football club, and they will take care of building the sporting field, building the change rooms, getting a water connection, paying for the water, getting a grant for the lights, everything. You won't find any metropolitan community that says that's acceptable. They'll all march on town hall and demand that the council sorts out why their kids don't have a footy ground to play at, and that the council should find some more money and do things. And the divide is quite amazing. And one of the obstacles to cooperatives getting off the ground, this is the point I wanted to make, is I think we're too good at pointing the finger at somebody else. We want someone else to solve all our problems. And if it's not clear, well, how much money will it take for you to solve my problem? But often we point the finger at government. And I really work hard in my community to dream up all sorts of ways to get local people involved in what we're doing. So if we've got a street upgrade somewhere, I'll say to the staff, right, you better write to people about, just generically, we've got a couple of ideas, please tell us if we're on the right track, tell us if you want to be involved, we're going to set up a little reference group. It drives the staff bananas. But what I'm trying to do is to get really local, fine-grained ownership. And when you get it right, it's terrific, because you've got all these ambassadors for all these things that you're doing. But I do find it quite difficult to get metropolitan people wanting to participate at a level which will achieve what you're saying, where governance really is a reflection of real grassroots community in action.
Brilliant. Okay, we've only got a couple of minutes. So a question down here, and then there's one up the back. Oh, sorry, someone's already got the microphone. Go for it.
I wonder why they don't start a volunteer guard in Australia, because with families now, they're all over Australia, and you mightn't be able to help your father or your mother when they're old. If they had a volunteer guard, you could help someone, and someone else could help your family in another state. We really need to encourage volunteers in our society. And if you had a guard, you could save hours on, you'd get many more volunteers.
Thank you. Can you what was the question, sorry?
Why don't they start a volunteer guard?
What a stronger...
A volunteer guard that you can save hours, so it's credited against your account.
Good volunteer co-ops?
Yeah, a volunteer guard.
Oh, sorry, a
So
volunteer card. Oh, what a great idea. Yes.
So you could help someone and someone could help your father or mother in another
Yes,
state.
in other states. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And you'd encourage volunteers if they thought they could get help when they get older.
Yeah, thank you.
We're not tapping into that resource at all.
Yes, no, you're right. But I was really interested to hear Guy tonight talking about, oh no, actually, it was you, David, talking about the idea of Volunteers SA, looking at how they can take their skills overseas and not only sell the ideas, but yeah, earn some revenue and spread the love overseas with their volunteering. Have we got another question, please? Yep, down the front, sorry.
Just while we're getting there, I can talk a bit about volunteerism. Which is contrary to my previous claim. Volunteerism is growing, and it's getting actually more complicated for councils because people are coming saying, I don't just want to drive the community bus. I'm actually an experienced administrator, and I want to help people with those tasks. And so our volunteer coordinators are tearing their hair out, trying to find roles for these people which don't look like another job in council, because they end up with an industrial problem. So the skill set of volunteers is really just amazing, and that's getting better and better.
I can tell Bert wants to...
I just want to add to that we now have a driverless bus at Transleen, so we don't need any volunteers.
Sorry, question?
Fran Baum from Flinders University. One question for Guy and then one comment. Have you seen any cooperatives that are based on the users of the service? So you could imagine that a whole lot of recipients of NDIS could get together and establish their own cooperative, and would maybe with workers. The other thing is that when you look at your definition of cooperatives, it actually looks like what a public service should be like too. You know, we all own it, and I think, you know, we have to consider what kind of public services we want along with this, because I think there's a danger of marketising things that should be properly in the public sphere.
Yeah, well done. Well said. I can actually, sorry Guy, I'm going to let you speak, but like with everything that's happening in aged care at the moment, I can imagine massive cooperatives of aged people who want to grow old gracefully, maybe in their own homes or sharing homes and forming cooperatives, and that's the way of the future as well. But Guy, please.
I'll take the second point first. I might be slightly controversial here. We've got this huge bulge demand for care, for health and social care. And we as a society need to figure out how we pay for it. So we can either pay more tax and we can employ more public sector workers, or we can create mutuals and operate a more commercially minded model to deliver to that need, or we can outsource it to Serco Group for us. And we as a community decide how we do that, and how much tax do we want to pay. And it is that question. Because I know in the UK, I don't know about Australia, we deliver care for £15 an hour. The in-house local authority service delivered exactly the same service for £30 an hour. Now, we paid our workers less than the public sector. That's a political, societal decision. Yes, exactly, that's my point. The second point, your first question was... Well, could you have a user-driven? Yes, and there are. It works for... I'll say 2 or 3 things. Disability is about lack of control, okay? So if you've got a physical disability and you end up controlling your care, it actually addresses some of those issues around disability. If you're delivering end-of-life care and the person's only got a week to live, they don't want to be involved in the governance of that service. They want quality care. So consumer-owned co-ops in care work in some sectors, not the others. And it's about figuring out where it works and where it doesn't work. What we are working on in the northern region where markets are thin is a joint venture cooperative where you have consumers on one side and providers on the other. Because the problem with consumer-directed care is it's all about driving down the unit cost, making us all mini commissioners, and nobody's taking an overview about who wants what when. It's very easy to say choice and control. Very difficult to articulate it.
That's Melina. Did you have something to add there? Then
wanted to add just 2 examples of great consumer co-ops that started in Australia. But Guy's absolutely right. It's the need. Who starts the co-op is where the need is. So it's out of that need that the enterprise forms, and that drives who the members are. So in the ACT, 40,000 consumers, patients of a GP clinic, suite of GP clinics are the owners of those businesses. 40,000 people. It started with 10 people in a cold church hall in West Belconnen because they didn't have one GP. Now got 52 across their enterprises. So every new person who comes along to the clinic now is a consumer owner, but they're not. The reason is because of the original need. Consumers couldn't get GPs. And another great example are these parents that have come together with their adult disabled children to have autonomous, independent, disability housing for themselves. And the parents and the kids, the young adults, are governing their houses as cooperatives. And because they have personalised budgets, they pull their budgets and buy the 24/7 services around there. So they don't have an intermediary.
Wow, that's a great place to finish, a nice positive way to finish. So please join me in thanking please join me in thanking our panellists. Oh, we've got a token of our appreciation here. Melina, David, it does. Oh, that's me. I'll keep that one. I think that's you, Bert, and Guy. And our presenters' thank you gift tonight. I hadn't actually heard of this before. It's Good Thanks, THNX. It enables people to donate to their favourite charities in an easy, innovative way that's also good for the world. So think about that next time you're giving a gift, because the presenters just pick a charity they'd like to donate to online. So thank you very much. Please give our presenters a round of applause. I'd also like to say a huge thank you again to the partners of the Thinker in Residence program, especially NBNCO, the Business Council for Cooperatives and Mutuals, and Flinders University New Ventures Institute's Shifted program for partnering tonight with the Don Dunstan Foundation's Thinker in Residence program. And thanks, of course, to the University of Adelaide for hosting us tonight. Thanks to you all as well for attending SA Towards a Cooperative State, Unleashing Social and Economic Prosperity. Slides for Guy's presentation will be available on the Don Dunstan website from tomorrow, I expect. Please join us for a drink in the foyer, and I know that we ran out of time for questions, but our panellists will be up there, I'm sure, having a little drink, so please hound them, ask your questions up there. If you have any inquiries about the Thinker in Residence program, of course, you can speak to David, who you saw here before. Kate, Rose or Coco will be up there as well. We're also excited to have Guy returning in November for the third and final stage of his residency, following a consultation period in July and his outreach with partners in September. Or now. So please reach for your phones now and pop the date of the final oration into your calendars, as this will include a summation of the final recommendations from Guy. Last but not least, stay tuned for further information over coming months as the Thinkers in Residence team plans for the final residency under the Social Capital Residencies program, with the return of both Alison Hewitt and Ilse Truenicht for a joint residency in March-April of 2018. And please don't forget to sign up for the Thinkers in Residence mailing list for updates on residencies. So thank you very much. That's all for tonight, and we'll see you upstairs having a drink. Thank you very much.